guys, and welcome back to the channel. This week's video is going to be slightly different. It's been something that I have had in the pipeline for quite some time now, and I did kind of dabble with it, and then I kind of went on to something else and did another project, and then I kept coming back to the same thing each time. So basically what this video is about today is about mental health, and unselfishly I thought, well, the first story really should come from me. For most of my followers and people who've known me from Instagram that have joined my YouTube channel, you may or may not know all the story of my mental health. And I don't want to bore you with it, because that's how people are made to feel. It's like, oh, somebody telling their life story about the things that have gone wrong in their life, or the things where it hasn't gone to plan, and oh, this and that. And when you feel as though you want to start to tell a story, you can just feel people switching off. But to be honest, somewhere along the way, we're all dealing with mental health. Whatever the problems are through your life, you will always find somebody that you bump into on everyday life. Maybe it could be a work colleague, it could be a family member, it could be a really close friend, it could be anybody. And it's amazing how many people kind of suffer in silence. Whereas me, I'm just a gobby person now. Never used to be. I find it a lot easier now to talk about a lot of things that to some might seem personal, but to me, it's a story, and it's my story. Now, this particular story for me started about 5 years ago now, just at the start of the first lockdown in COVID. At the time, I was living in Liverpool. I was with a partner of 13 years, and I thought everything was going pretty good. As like most relationships, they always have their ups and downs. It's never always bright sunny days. There's always something, the dark gloomy days, or the days when you're not feeling 100%, or whatever it might be. So my particular journey into my own mental health started in June of 2020. That was the day that my partner passed away. And it wasn't to do with COVID. She had health problems that were just ongoing, have been for a number of years up until that point. But I think the lockdown situation and other factors kind of exacerbated the whole situation for her. Anyway, in the June of, like I said, 2020, she passed away. Now, she at that time, to me, was my rock. You know, we did stuff together, as most couples usually do, days out, go and have parties, went to see friends, loved ones, and just generally, on the whole, just had fun times. Now, when she passed away, that left a massive gap in my life, because really we'd kind of been wrapped up in each other's lives, that we didn't really consider anything outside of that bubble. Now, when that happened, I was living in a flat. I had no social bubble, so I had no friends that would, you know, regularly call round on me, or I could go and see them. I was kind of keeping myself to myself most of the time in Liverpool. Not because I didn't want to make friends. It's just because my social circle, I wasn't the kind of person that would go out on a weekend, you know, and go to the pubs, nightclub, all that sort of stuff, like most people usually tend to do, and just get absolutely hammered. Getting hammered really wasn't my thing. I just enjoyed my own peace and quiet, to be honest, doing things that I enjoyed. And then when we did go out as a couple, it was like stuff that we both enjoyed, like maybe going to see a film or going out for a meal, you know, that kind of stuff. So anyway, like I said, once she passed, it just kind of hit me like a big rock, to be honest, because I felt like my whole world had just gone out from underneath my feet. I then decided that I didn't want to go out anymore. Not at that particular moment. I had no interest in anything. it's like I'd lost all my enjoyment for the basic things that I really enjoyed in my life, like my hobbies, which at the time were photography. I'd only recently just got into starting that because my partner bought me a camera for my birthday a couple of months before. And that was giving me an incentive to kind of start to do little projects and little exciting things where I could just go off and have my own little adventures. My partner was never really one for wanting to come with me on like the walks and things like that, because obviously she saw photography as like my hobby, and obviously she had her own, so it was just sort of never the twain shall meet kind of thing. So I thought, you know, that's okay, that's pretty healthy really, because if you're in a relationship, you don't really want to be spending 24/7 with that person, because that's not really healthy. It's good to have your own interests. So I kept with that. But then, like I said, because I just lost the interest on doing just the basic things, I decided not to do any photography. I just didn't have the love for it. I then started to stay in a lot more, stay indoors, keep the door locked, curtains closed, just shut the world out. And that was, for me, that felt normal. I didn't feel as though I was doing anything out of the ordinary. And then a day goes by, and then another day, and then you realised, okay, it's not too bad just staying in, just avoiding everybody. And I think what happened is that because I was self-isolating, I was avoiding public spaces where there were other people gathered. So I thought, well, I'm not really missing out on anything. I'm just quite happy, quite content in my own space, in my own world, just getting my head together about what I was going through. So I was emotional for most of the time whilst I was in my house. Friends that were on Instagram, my follower friends, noticed that I wasn't really posting as many things, and I wasn't doing stories, I wasn't doing videos. And obviously I put a message out to say, you know, my partner's passed away, and just kind of having time to myself. So most people just generally left me alone. That was it. It was like, okay. It's almost like, well, I've touched base with him. I've said that, you know, I'm here if you need me. I'll get on with my own life now. And I never thought anything bad of that, because it's right. You know, I'm nothing to anybody else. I'm just someone that I can, you know, they can have a conversation with when the time allows for them to fit me into their life. And to be fair, I wasn't really wanting people around me. So I tended to push more people away that tried to get close. I went through a really negative phase of just not liking myself, hating everything that I saw in the mirror. I'm surprised that I even got out of bed every day. But my routine when I was in the early stages of depression was just kind of getting out of bed, going in the living room, sitting on the sofa, and then just spending most of the day just staring at four walls. Crazy. But to me, it felt like I needed to do that. Why I needed to get out of bed to go in the living room, I don't know. I still haven't worked that bit out, to be honest. But maybe that was my way of making things feel a little bit normal and not just staying in my bed 24/7. I don't know. Like I said, there's been a lot of times when I've kind of thought about everything that happened. And I spent most of my time over-analysing everything. Oh, why did I do that? And why did this happen? And you went through the normal, for anyone who's dealt with loss or bereavement, you know how difficult it is. It doesn't have to be a loved one close to you, like a partner or a wife, husband, whatever. Could be a family member, could even be a pet. I don't know. We still feel loss. Doesn't matter what it is or what shape or form it comes in. You know, it's a loss to you, and you do feel it, and it hits hard, and it's very difficult for anyone outside of that little bubble of your life to understand what you're actually going through, the emotions that go through your head. And so I decided to just use that time about getting myself back on track. Now that time has taken 5 years to where I am now, as you see me on this video. And you might think, well, you know what? If you were to pass me in the street or have a conversation with me, you would think, yeah, he seems all right. He seems normal to me. He's responding to questions I'm asking him about himself and how he's doing, and, you know, asking him about his hobbies and the things he likes in life in general. But that's the thing. You see, after a while, it then becomes almost like a mask that you show to people in public. You know, just like you put clothes on to step outside your door to go out for the day, this was just another mask. And I hid things really well from people. I started to get really good at acting, to the point where I was hiding things from close friends because I didn't want, first of all, to talk about my feelings inside. Because I thought more about, I was bringing them down. I was bringing down the mood of how they were feeling that day. And I thought, well, why would they want to listen to me? You know, I'm going to get people sick of listening to me. So I thought, well, I'm just going to play the clown like I used to when I was at school. Always be the person that tries to make others happy. And it doesn't matter how I'm feeling inside, because to me, it didn't really matter at that point. And the way I see it is that that's how I thought I'm going to get through all this. But then it got to the point where other neighbours and close friends that were near to where I was living had noticed that I hadn't even stepped out the door, and they hadn't seen me for a while around the place. So obviously they started knocking on my door or ringing my phone just to check on me, which, looking back on it now, I probably really appreciated that. But at the time, it just felt, I'm not going to answer the door. I don't need to speak to anybody. Because I felt as though people were being intrusive into a world where I just wanted to just cope with everyday stuff, just to try and get my head together. And I thought, yeah, I've dealt... See, my background, sorry, just to reiterate this, my background was in customer service. So I always felt I was good at putting people at ease. I was good at trying to resolve issues, complaints, things like that. And I thought, do you know what? Maybe that's what I need to do, is just talk to myself and I'll get through this. I don't mean speaking out loud like some crazy person. But I think because of my age and hopefully my maturity at that time, I thought, yeah, I can get through most things and I can do this myself. I don't need anybody's help. So, of course, that's what I did. I just buried my head in the sand, just pretended like everything was just going on as normal. Anyway, so that continued for quite a few months. And then one day I decided I was going to end it all because things were just getting too much and I couldn't cope with not having the answers to my questions. I won't go into detail because it's, like I said, it's partly my story, and although I'm quite happy to kind of talk at this level about things that went on, there are reasons why some people might think of me as being selfish for doing things like that. And yeah, it probably seemed like that to anyone outside of my own world, if you like, outside of my own little bubble. Because we all have times where things just get too much. They get on top of us. We feel pressure, we feel stress, we feel anxiety. And that social anxiety of that very first day when I finally decided, after all that happened, to actually step outside of my door of my flat and just go for a walk. Because I hadn't been out at that point for weeks, absolute weeks. I didn't even count how many weeks it was. But like I said, those days went into weeks and weeks into months. And that's the only thing with depression, and also with grief as well, because it was depression from COVID, from being isolated. You know, you're only allowed to do certain things and you're only allowed to have limited time of doing things. And that just hit so hard because of, like I said, no social bubble, no friends came around to actually see me apart from my neighbours, but that was like months down the line. And like I said, it's very difficult to try and tell somebody, you know, when you usually, I don't know whether, I'm sorry if I'm rambling now, I'm just trying to think of situations where, if you've ever had a situation where you've had a loss or you've grieved for somebody, and as a friend to someone who's lost someone, you're always wondering of what words to say that's going to help ease their pain. And to be fair, you never really are going to find the right words. But sometimes maybe that's not the right words. It's maybe just having somebody around you to show that they care, to have empathy, to understand what you feel and what you're going through. And you don't actually have to have lost somebody to have empathy. I think it's showing that you are a good person inside and thinking, putting yourself in their shoes, thinking, okay, if this happened to me, how would I be feeling? And everything that you're thinking, well, I'll make a list of words to describe how I think I would feel if I lost somebody close to me. And you'd probably get exactly word for word as what I would tell you that I'm feeling. So it's no different. So don't ever feel that you can't go up to somebody. Well, I've never lost anybody, so I don't know how to talk to them. Best way is just to talk to them in a normal way. You don't have to focus on what they're going through. You just have to get them talking. That's the first task I would find. Because I'm sure the person that first tried to talk to me, and I just didn't want to know. I just clammed up and it's like, I don't want to tell you my story for many reasons. But eventually after the incident where, like I said, I tried to end my life, I ended up going to get some counselling, and that was only through the Samaritans, because I rang them just asking. I finally plucked up the courage to actually speak to someone on the phone, and I still don't remember the person's name at this point. So from the counselling sessions, it was a place in Liverpool at the time which was there to help men with the feelings of suicide or contemplating it. And I decided to reach out and take the Samaritans' advice and go and seek help, and they referred me on to a place called James Place, which is in Liverpool. There might be other similar places around the UK, but that was the one closest for me. So I decided to do that. And like I said, I got to speak to this fabulous lady, and she even said to me after we'd had our 6th session, because there was only 6 short sessions really. I think first of all I was very lucky to get into this place. Because usually there's a huge waiting list, but because of my situation at the time, because it was immediate and urgent that I needed to speak to somebody, and because of the incident obviously on my life, then it probably made more sense for someone to refer me to them straight away. So anyway, I went along to the sessions, went there with an open mind at the time, because I thought it's going to be a person that's going to put lots of plasters on me. I don't mean actual plasters, I mean virtual plasters. Because I just felt as though I had so many wounds on my body that I didn't think anybody was going to be able to heal me. And I thought it was going to take a lot longer. And although we talked about the stuff to do with the bereavement side of things, obviously there were other things that had built up over those months whilst I was kind of self-isolating because of COVID. The social anxiety, the stress, the grief from the bereavement, dealing with loss, feeling isolated because I've got no immediate family. Sadly, they've all passed now, so I'm the only one left. So there's a lot of things like that I'd see when I did start going out again. I'd see all people on the streets with their families and think, why can't that be me? Why can't I have, So it started to hit differently when I'd had my sessions, because I started to evaluate things a little bit differently about my life, about where it was heading, what I was going to do with myself, because I had to start making some plans. I had to start doing something that I had to try and get myself back on track. But it's one of those things is that the more I found myself trying to make plans and want to do something with my life and not think, get too caught up in the moment like, oh, woe is me, I've lost my partner. Yeah, think about all the other hundreds and thousands of people who've lost their loved ones through COVID. I'm not the only one that lost anybody, and it wasn't down to COVID, but it just the fact that although I've separated from people I've had relationships with in the past through normal breakup situations, I've never been with a partner and they've actually passed away whilst we've still been together. So I had nothing to refer back to in my head for situations where, oh yeah, I've dealt with that in the past, I know how to do this. And that's how I had to think, is step by step, is just to get my way through it. And because I didn't have any answers to any questions that were coming up in my head or what I was thinking about, I thought, I don't know how to deal with this, I can't cope. And it just felt overwhelming. Like I said, I was constantly upset. And I was living in a flat which was surrounded with all memories of a relationship that was no longer there. But I didn't have the heart or the stomach to start moving things out of the flat, like getting rid of things that because they were too painful memory, or hiding them away or putting them away in a box or something. So it started to feel as though I was living in a little museum. So every time I was waking up, it was constant reminders of things, like I said, that were no longer there now. And like I said, at the time, I found that very difficult to cope with. And obviously, as you can see now, I don't know whether you can anyway, but even talking about things like this from so long ago, what seems so long ago, still feels quite raw. Although I can talk about it comfortably, I'm not, stumbling with my words or not able to explain exactly how I'm feeling. And like I said, it went from me actually reaching out for help to getting that help to then thinking, right, well, 6 sessions and that's it, we're done. How do I still don't have the right tools I need to get myself back on track, because 6 sessions for me, as grateful as I am for that, is never going to make me feel 100% better after that 6th session. It's not all about, okay, well, they've sorted you out now so you can get back to work or you can start living your life again now that you've talked it through. It's not that easy. So all I would say to you is that if you do come across anyone in your life, whether it be a friend, someone you've just bumped into on the street and you start having a conversation with them, and they tell you something that's really personal, don't just kind of dismiss it and go, all right, I've got to go to work in a bit. Well, look after yourself. Hope you're okay. Because they're not. And sometimes just taking that extra little bit of time to sit down with somebody, yeah, they might want to pour their heart out to you, but to be honest, that's a massive thing if they do that. Obviously, I know there's people in the world that kind of do all the crocodile tears thing and, they kind of start crying before they're hurt. And I know you have to judge each situation on its own merits. So I'm not saying, just think everyone's out there just to give you a bit of a sob story. At the end of the day, you might be the first and only person they've spoken to all day. And it makes a massive difference if you're taking time out of your day to sit down with them and listen. You don't have to talk, just listen, and just being there, I think, is enough for most people. I'm only saying that because of what I've gone through, and I have gone through an awful lot. It's not just that, there's other things before, but that's for another video. I'm proud. I am proud of myself, because I could have quite easily gone the opposite way and just finished it all in that first year and thought, nah, I'm not really bothered, don't want to be here anymore. But there was something that kept spurring me on, and I think it's my stubbornness not to quit on anything. That's probably what I'm glad about. So yeah, thank you for making me stubborn, my mum and dad. So I'm now going to wrap this video up, because I think 24 minutes of listening to me rambling on, listening to someone else who you probably don't even know, and you're probably thinking it's not photography related, so I'm not interested. And I've probably been, I just wanted to fill a couple of minutes gap, basically. That's what some people might watch this video and think that. And if you do, that's fair enough. At least you sat for a few minutes watching it. But if anyone else who's watched this all the way through, I thank you for doing that. Because like I said, I'm not the only one who's had stuff, you know. And I don't claim to be I don't claim to be anyone who, you know, is doing this just for the sake of making a video. I think at the end of the day, I think it's good, the fact that I can kind of still talk about this. And yes, there will be a lot of people watching the video that may never have watched my videos before. And if this is the first one that you're seeing, I'm sorry about that. But if you're also feeling the way that you think, I don't know which way to turn in my life, and this video helps you, then you're welcome. And anyone who's been in that situation or still is, if you want to reach out to me, you can contact me in all confidence. None of your details will be passed to anybody else. I won't talk to friends about what you tell me in confidence, because I'm doing this because I feel it's going to help me in the long term as well. The more I do this, the easier things become, because I want to move on with my life now. I'm not the same person by any means that I was 5 years ago when it first happened, thank God. But it still shows that I do have my weaknesses every now and then, hence today. But you know what? I'm not embarrassed about it. And I'm glad that I've been able to share the story. So there may be more stories coming up from people that I want to speak to, like local friends that people that I've made friends with in Darlington now that I'm back here. So there may be other people's stories and people who are willing to share that story as well to others like myself. So if that is something of interest to you, then keep watching my YouTube channel, and obviously there'll be other things. It won't always be about this, but I think mental health is a big topic for us all to be mindful of. And yeah, I think we can get too wrapped up in our own lives to worry about anybody else. And I get that, because it is a bit about self-preservation before you can help others. But once you are on that road to recovery and things are getting better, if you feel strong enough to talk to others or to help other people out, I tell you what, it makes a massive difference to your soul, personally, and it does for me. It's all that about the feel-good stuff, and if I've been able to help anybody with this story, then I'm glad. So, anyway, that's me. I'm going to wrap it up, because as much as I don't mind telling my story, I do find it quite emotionally draining, because it's bringing everything that I've kind of filed away in a filing cabinet in my head back to the forefront again. So it's kind of talking about it and everything's kind of feeling a bit raw again. So if you don't mind, I'm going to leave it there. I promise the next time you see me on video, it will be light and bright, because today will just be another memory. And then tomorrow when I wake up, I'll feel bright again. And it's not that I'm feeling bright now, but you know what I mean. But anyway, yeah, so I'll leave it there. So thanks guys for watching. Thanks for being on my channel. Thanks for subscribing. And I don't like to use this video as a staging point for me to go. And by the way, click like, comment and subscribe. I'm going to leave that to you. I know I should be pushing it, but it's not really the kind of video that I want to say, oh yeah, please subscribe. But if you do, it'd be much appreciated, it really would. And hopefully I'll get to touch base with you guys again, and hopefully have a nice, brighter topic to talk about. But keep smiling, be happy, be kind to yourselves and to others, be respectful, but most of all, just go out and have fun every day. Okay, guys, I'll see you again. Bye for now.